Hey, Mike, how are you?
Right now, this very second, I'm feeling poorly for Johnny Thunder.
Well, I'm very interested that you're thinking poorly for Johnny Thunder. Why are you thinking poorly for Johnny Thunder?
Well, we have that shot from the first Justice Society story
Hmm.
uh, opening this broadcast, and
Yes, please tell
Johnny's
me more.
there in his like suit that I think he later gave to Jimmy Olsen. Okay, Johnny Thunder was the comic relief of the Justice Society,
Yes.
and they didn't really have a good sense of humor, so he was barely getting by as comic relief. He didn't get very much respect. He didn't have any powers except for to summon this guy who did all the dirty work, which is pretty cool, I guess. But he didn't understand what was going on. In the beginning, he didn't even know how to summon his little demon. So, after
Hey, don't tell me
many
that.
years of this, they introduced Black Canary in the Johnny Thunder series in Flash Comics. And immediately they realized that Black Canary is 100 times more popular than Johnny Thunder. Well, go figure. And Carmen Infantino's some of his best artwork on that, and she took over, and they never mentioned Johnny Thunder again until Crisis on Infinite Earths or Crisis on Earth One or Earth Two or
So is
Earth.
that really it was still okay? All right.
Yes, I'm looking at him. I'm going like, oh, gee, I'm so sorry, man. You just never got your proper respect. You're a founding member of the Justice Society, one of the oldest superheroes around. He predates everybody at Marvel, but the original Human Torch, Captain America, and he predates Captain America, I think, and Submariner. He's been around a long, long time.
I know. Well, listen,
But
he's been replaced currently. There's Johnny's not there. Jakeem is.
Well, that's
But
okay because they're on to like the second generation, which means the second generation people are in their late 80s.
right. So so welcome everybody to the Pop Culture Squadcast. Mike is like, I don't know, he needs like one of those Swami hats or something like that, because we have a guest tonight. We're gonna talk to Ben Percy pretty soon. Um he's gonna come here. We're gonna talk about all of his great comic book stuff. We're gonna talk about his novels. We're gonna talk about some really great project he's doing that's with a like legendary person. And I want to hear more about that.
I
But
want to talk to him about a dog.
okay, that's fair. I I have been wanting to talk to Mike about this for a long time. Now, I don't know if anybody who watches this show or watches our little squadcast occasionally or whatever, we lead with this opening scene, this banner that we put out front, an overlay. And this overlay is uh is from the first appearance of Justice Society, and so I've been planning for weeks now to talk about this. I want to do a deep dive because we had Mike sent me this panel in a text months ago, and I'm like, you know what, that'd be pretty cool because it's Tuesday night, and if it's Tuesday night, we're here with you at the Squadcast, so we kind of throw it up there, and it's become our thing, and I kind of think it's cute. Um, what is it from though? Like that's the question. So people may have been wondering, people who don't know that it's from All-Star Comics #3, as Mike was saying, and that is this particular book right here. So let's put this here, put it there. All-Star Comics #3 is the first appearance of the Justice Society. It was the first real kind of comics crossover. For people who don't know, younger people, it was, you know each character was kind of its own little fiefdom company that was kind of all published by one publisher, and they're kind of the stories were sold to the publisher, which was All American Comics at the time. Or you can correct me.
Yeah.
This particular issue, though, it basically is is an anthology in a way that we have come to know anthologies. There's a framing sequence at the beginning and the end, and then there's a whole bunch of individual stories in the middle with all of the different characters for this first issue of All Star Comics. What I find amazingly interesting, two things that I wanted to bring up. One is, and I'll go back to the other piece, the other sorry, wrong button. Let's go back to this window. So this image, it says, I told him I thought next Tuesday night would be okay. Is that all right? Can you all make it? Sure, suits me fine. Mike, do you know who him is?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't, so I thought it was interesting. I don't know that I want to meet with him. I'm sure you probably didn't want to meet with him either.
On Tuesday?
Well, the him. I told him.
I see. You don't want to meet with him at any point in time.
I don't want to meet with him at any point. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty glad he's dead. But him refers to J. Edgar Hoover.
Yes, it does. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have minded meeting J. Edgar Hoover. I had been in his building,
But they
didn't let me anywhere near him. I'm not even sure he was there at that time. He had things to say to me. Actually, I read my FBI file in 1971. So, he had things to say about me. It's okay. It's sort of a mutual admiration society. I think he looks good in red. Can we get back to that All-Star #3 cover for a second?
Yes, we will. I'm trying to I got a lot of covers here. Let me bring it back in. I have some other pictures because there's some other things about this particular issue that I find pretty interesting in relation to you and us.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead. There's the All-Star #3 cover.
Okay. Did you notice Johnny Thunder on the cover?
No, I did not.
Because Johnny Thunder is on the cover in name only at the bottom of the starring box.
Right, I see that.
But he's not even on the cover.
So the other part of this is that there is not I don't think there's a Johnny Thunder story. There may be, but there is a 2-page Johnny Thunder text story in this.
Yes.
book. And do you know who wrote that?
What I don't off the top of my head, I would guess Evelyn Gaines.
You are correct. It was Evelyn Gaines.
Ha! That's Bill Gaines's mother, the publisher's wife.
Well, no, my understanding is that he is Bill's cousin.
Cousin?
And her uncle was the older Gaines.
That could be.
She was the niece. She was the niece of the elder Gaines.
Ah, I stand corrected.
That's my understanding. The other part that is very interesting is because you did a article last week about, was it last week or the week before, the issue talking about the DC anthology book, correct?
Yes, I talked a little bit about the
history one, and you mentioned that you mentioned the original Red Tornado.
Yes,
Ma Hunkel, which is she's the featured person in that book, right? It's called I saw Ma Hunkel kissing Santa Claus, right? So in this particular issue, she does make an appearance. She's in All-Star Comics #3.
Yes.
She is first mentioned, however, here, where they misnamed her and called her Scribbly's pal, the Red Tomato. Scribbly gets a mention in this book.
Red Tornado and Scribbly were created by Shelley Mayer, who was the
Correct.
editor-in-chief of All American Comics,
Correct.
and was the editor of All Star Comics and therefore the Justice Society. And he like I say, he created Scribbly and Red Tornado. He edited that issue. It was an important issue because it was essentially a relaunch of the magazine. And it was the beginning of a very precarious partnership between DC Comics and All American Comics. You'd think that Shelley would have caught that.
Oh no, it was. I think it was a joke.
I agree with you, but I can't prove it.
Oh, you should have asked him. How did you not ask him?
I know. Look, I
no,
only talked to Shelley for about 18 hours each time I ever talked to him, and there wasn't enough time for me to even scratch the surface. First of all, you say hello to him, and then you can just take a nap because he'll just talk forever, but you won't nap because it was lovely. It was comics history, and he was a funny man, and he'd been there. I was Shelley Mayer's last editor.
Yes, I know.
And that is so weird to me because Shelley Mayer was comics' first editor. He edited Famous Funnies #1.
Sure. I mean, and then this is Shelley Mayer art. Am I right? I'm fairly certain.
I don't know for sure.
He definitely drew in this book. He definitely drew the interview.
Yeah, I understand that. But I don't know that for a fact.
So here this panel says, see if it isn't the Red Tomato. Oops, pardon me. I mean Red Tornado. See, it's a joke. Right. It is definitely a joke.
Well, I'd never thought Our Man had much of a sense of humor.
Well,
he really didn't have superpowers. He dropped this pill, and then for an hour he thought
he's an addict. He thought he had superpowers.
Yeah. He just thought he had them. And everybody would just sort of laugh, Right.
That's fair.
Except Johnny Thunder, he didn't get it.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's the Johnny Thunder story that is a 2-page text story about Johnny Thunder in there, and again, it comes back to the point. The end of the story is where we get that famous, our cover overlay where we said, we'll meet here on Tuesday. I just wanted to pass that along. I thought that was fun. And anybody who's joined late, you want to go back and rewatch. We talk about where we came up with the overlay that starts the show, which comes from All-Star Comics #3. I thought, as we get later in the year, we're getting towards the end. We have a couple more shows after tonight, and then we're going to take a break for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to hit the ground running in 2026 as we start year 3.
That's true. Jeez. May I make one more comment about All-Star? Just one brief comment. When I realized that there was an organized comics fandom out there, which was in the mid-60s, everybody collected Justice Society, the old All-Star Comics. Everybody. Everybody collected EC and Carl Barks and Justice Society. Those were the three, and the Spirit. Those were the three big things. And being one of the youngest ones in the group, I got exposed to all of that. I knew about it, but I hadn't seen it or read very much of it. So what we have today is a continuation of that fandom roots. It's not just comics history roots and the first, cross company super team, or which arguably is not quite accurate. It's part of the history of comics fandom as well, and the Justice Society, as well as Johnny Thunder, do not appear really in that issue. They don't start functioning as a society, as a super team, until issue 4.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that's 100% true, and that's very fair. Um, I I just think it's I didn't know. So I did a lot. I just for some reason I went down a rabbit hole and I wanted to find out more about that particular panel. So I did use some sleuthing and I found where it was from, and I found it was interesting that the he that is that the guys or the group, mind you, it's interesting also in that you know um, this group does not include Wonder Woman or Batman or Superman. They're not
Well,
included.
Wonder Woman hadn't been created yet. Her first,
She was before she was created, right? Okay.
that's right. Her first appearance was in All Star number 8.
Oh, I thought it was earlier than no. So again, no women, no
No,
Batman, no Superman. I think there's a reference to some sort of like veiled reference to that they're not showing up.
well, what there is to Superman and Batman. They said, well, they have their own books. They don't need this exposure. The reality was that Donenfeld didn't want to have the heavy hitters in Gaines's comic book. It was just that simple. Um, the funny thing is, just the day before yesterday, I read All Star number 40.
Really?
John
Which one is
Byrne,
that? Is that the one?
Juvenile Delinquency. It's the one where the Justice Society cures a community of its juvenile delinquency problem. And what occurred to me rereading it this time, first time I read it was probably, a half century ago, longer. They were trying to deflect Wortham from his comics create juvenile delinquency to juvenile delinquents create juvenile delinquency. It was one of the very first dodges or responses to that beginning hysteria, which did begin right before the time that book was published. The first articles in the Reader's Digest and Saturday Evening Post came down just before that issue, a couple months before that issue was published.
Well, yeah. So that's ironic. That is ironic. We're gonna move off of that for a sec. Might come back to some old comics history in a minute. But today, as I mentioned to you earlier, Mike, it is Giving Tuesday. It is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. We have these days. We have Thanksgiving Thursday. Then we have, Black Friday. Then it's just a weekend of sleep and football. And then we have Monday, Cyber Monday. And then we get to today, Cyber Tuesday. Whatever you have left, you should give some. You should help some people out. If you haven't spent all of your money by now, that is the theory behind Giving Tuesday. It's a day. There are some positives to it in that we can think about the charities or the people who we want to give donations to, and this is a good time to remember that, and before it's all gone,
or give time.
Give time, sure.
Give
schedule time,
effort, help some folks out. I'm not saying that you all out there in Etherland do not already do as much as you can.
Of course.
I'm sure a great many of you, if not most of you, do. We need more. That's what it comes down to. We need more. Take a look around you, and to quote Frank Zappa, and you'll realize we need a lot more. Everybody's got to do their part.
So, on the note, I wanted to talk about a little bit. We're Jerry and I are going to be at GalaxyCon Columbus this weekend. So if you're in the Eastern Midwestern area or at all, and you feel like braving 30-degree temperatures to get to the center of Ohio, we will be there. you should come see. There's going to be a great list of creators. There's going to be a super giant list of superstar actors and actresses and stuff. There's going to be great, cosplay. There's going to be some wrestling. There'll be after dark burlesque, probably. You don't know.
It's a wonderful show.
It is.
I wish I was there, going there this year. I wish I was there last year. It is a wonderful show, and it's right across the street from the hockey arena. So
it is.
If I get bored, I can just go to a hockey game. Last time my daughter and I were there, Jamie Graham from Graham Crackers took Adrian to the hockey game, leaving me to hold the fort. Thanks, Jamie.
So we are going to be there this weekend. Sherry and I are going to be there. We're going to be manning the Heroes Initiative table. Hero Initiative is super important, and it is a place where you can go and donate. I'm going to put the link in the show notes and in the comments where you can do that. Hero Initiative creates a financial safety net for comic creators who may need emergency medical aid, financial support for essentials in life, an avenue back to paying work. Since its inception, Hero Initiative has been fortunate enough to benefit creators with more than $1 million worth of much needed aid, fueled by contributions. It's a chance for all of us to give back to something, to the people who have given us so much enjoyment. It is super important to me. It's something that Sherry and I spend a lot of our year doing. This is at least three shows where we're physically there, collecting funds, helping people out, and it's something that we always talk to people about and encourage people to get involved, or if they have a couple of dollars or a dollar, or they know something that can be donated to help they can raise money for something in the future. They do auctions over throughout the year in different places. There are eBay auctions that go on. There's original art that people donate. And we know a lot of the people who are responsible for doling out the funds. We know a bunch of people who have been our friends who have been in need and received some of the funds from Hero Initiative.
Absolutely. I can't begin to tell you, and I won't begin to tell you, how many friends of mine have been helped out by Hero Initiative. But just as important, how many people I grew up worshiping, grew up being entertained by, being educated by, have been recipients of assistance badly needed from the Hero Initiative. They're wonderful people. You will not see Bob or Sherry or me at a comic book convention, more often than not, without one of those little fundraising boxes for Hero Initiative in front of us. It's always there. And I'd rob a bank for them if I thought the bank still had money.
Absolutely. It's super important, and we're really, really, really blessed, in as many ways as we can be to be affiliated with it and to have the opportunity to, help out. So we're going to do that. We're going to bring a bunch of buckets. I've been scheduled, planning the last couple of days and stuff about who's going to be there and how we're going to, raise a couple of bucks at this time of year. It's important. Like I said, there's a link in the comments. It's just go to www.heroinitiative. There's no S in it. It's heroinitiative.org. And you can donate to Hero Initiative. You can set up, you can do any method of electronic transactions you can do. You can even set up, if you have with your company, one of those matching gifts, you can set that up with Hero Initiative. And get other people to get involved and support it. So it's Giving Tuesday. I wanted to make a point about it. We're going to be stay tuned to the show. Stay tuned to our socials, because I will be doing some quick hit question of the day type stuff with some of the folks that are out there, and we'll be highlighting Hero Initiative there as well. So
I would also like to add something that isn't really part of Hero Initiative.
That's fine.
But is in the spirit. We talked about donating time and effort. Those of you who are artistically inclined, and that includes writing, mentor.
Mm.
The most important thing you can do with what's inside your head is to mentor others.
Sure.
I just wanted to plant that word inside everybody's head.
All right. I like that word. I think we should talk about that more. Like I said, we have two more shows this year. Next week we have a guest. I'm going to spoil it right now. Frank Barbieri is going to be our guest next week. And then the following week, we're going to do a wrap-up show. Mike and I, we're going to get some other folks in. We're going to talk about the things we really liked this year. We're going to wrap up the year and then send us off on a quick, on a little hiatus for a couple of weeks. Before we get to any of that, we're going to bring in our guest.
Who's gotten old waiting for this.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. I think he was born old. We're going to get Ben Percy in here, and I'm a fan of his. I'm happy to call him friend. We've spent some time together, and I cannot wait to talk about some of the things that he's got going on. So, without further ado, here's Ben Percy. Hey Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh,
Hey, Ben.
our pleasure.
Howdy.
Have you guys met Mike? Ben, Mike?
I don't believe so.
I think this is the first time, so good to meet you.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. Well, I apologize for everything.
Yeah. Well, you're not forgiven.
Always nice to meet a fellow Saluki.
That's right, yeah. Carbondale was a long time ago, but I have
Long time ago. That the Slooky is the dog to which I was referring often. Slooky is an Egyptian dog, and Ben and I have that in common.
Well, I want Ben. I want to jump right in and talk about the end times before we get to anything else. We're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff, but I want you to kind of set the stage. I know it's something you're excited to talk about. What is this project, and how do people get involved in it?
The End Times is a short novel told in the form of a newspaper. This newspaper is delivered over the course of a year, monthly. You can subscribe to it digitally, or you can subscribe to it physically. And it takes place in year 12 years after an infectious disease wipes out 99% of the population. So this is not taking place in a time of collapse. It's taking place in a time of new beginnings. And the world is settled into an unsteady sort of normal. You know, there are people in this community, the community of North End, Minnesota, who are blacksmiths, hunters, farmers, weavers. But Mary Poole, our main character, has not yet sort of found her footing. One day when she's scavenging, she happens upon an old printing press, and she decides that this is the way she can contribute. She launches a newspaper. The newspaper is what you are reading, her newspaper. It starts off as just her voice, But she continues to invite people to contribute, and before long it becomes a chorus of voices, a village of voices. And the newspaper educates, it entertains, it brings people together, but it also saves lives because there's some dark stuff going on in the background. And the monthly delivery, the serialized storytelling, enhances the suspense as you wonder from October to November, from November to December, what's going to happen next.
That's fantastic. I am very excited. I have I have subscribed to the physical version. I want to feel the newsprint in my hand or whatever.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And you know what's old is new again. You can go to the Bad Hand Books website to subscribe, and we're only keeping the physical copies open for just a little longer, like
Sure.
maybe another week. So if you know anybody who needs coal in their stocking, now is the time. You will be able to subscribe digitally throughout the year, but
Sure.
physically we got to cut things off because.
And the first issue is out. Is that right? Is the first
one issue?
We're afraid of this.
Uh-oh.
One issue is out. We're hoping Ben will unmute. You got a little hung up there, but you're back now.
Yeah, well, StreamYard doesn't like me. Never has.
I think it's the far remoteness of your location that doesn't
That's
like
right. I'm broadcasting in from the North Pole.
Anyway, the first issue is out, as you said. Like, this is so cool. Like, how'd you come up with this? How did this come about?
A few different things came together in my head. One was during the pandemic, I became sort of, as most people were, overwhelmed by the news, and I feel like that continues to this day, right? You open up a news feed, it feels like you're shoving broken glass in your eyes. And what I came to recognize during that time is how much I loved my local newspaper, and it helped me understand, as I read about a quarterback carried off the field during homecoming, or a church organist who retired after 50 years, or a new restaurant that was opening, or an obituary of a beloved neighbor. Like, I realized that you can make an impact. You might not be able to make an impact on the global stage, but you can make an impact in your own backyard. And I found that really reassuring. I started to think about, the newspaper, a small town newspaper, as a new form of the epistolary novel. I've always loved epistolary novels, beginning with books like Frankenstein and Dracula, which are mostly diary entries, journal entries, letters. And so modernizing that, the newspaper format, which includes comics and obituaries, birth announcements, articles, the whole shebang, that is the way that the novel is delivered, and everybody will have a different experience reading it, right? Just like a newspaper. Some people will begin in the top left, go to the bottom right of every page. Some people switch immediately to the comic strip. Some people, follow an article from the beginning of the paper and past the fold and onto page 6, and so on. So I love the choose your own adventure style of it all as well.
I was when I was in journalism school at Southern Illinois, of all places, I had learned that when it was perceived, this is 1968, it was perceived that when you were a child, you were attracted to the newspaper by the comic strips. And as you get older, you're attracted to the newspaper by the box scores. Now, of course, this is no longer true. But as you get older, and this part is still true, you're first attracted by the obits.
I do find the obituaries fascinating.
They are. I'm so excited for this. I hope you can hear me because your face is stuck. But I am so excited to get this. I cannot wait to attack this
Thank you.
Reading experience.
I was pissed at the Onion when they dropped the print edition, because I thought that's people wouldn't get the joke that it was the area of a newspaper. And now, they survive on the internet, and they do wonderful work. And if you send it to people, a lot of people will think that stuff is true, which is great in the hands of a really evil, malicious person like myself. And now they've gone back to doing a monthly print edition, pretty expensive nonetheless. And now you're doing it.
Well,
don't get me too excited here. I'd love to see newspapers come back.
I love newspapers, physical newspapers.
I'm just saying, like, I got this newspaper that I get, the Comics Courier. So, like, I'm going right back to like old school newspaper.
Yeah, what's old is new again.
That's right. With it. I'll take it. But I think it's fantastic. So you have a partner in this. How'd that work? How does that work for you? How does how does Stephen King come into this at all?
So Stephen King, about a decade ago, I was teaching a class. I used to be a professor in my former life, and my phone started blowing up. After the workshop, I went into the hall and checked it, and the world wasn't ending. Stephen King had tweeted about me. He had tweeted about one of my novels, Red Moon. I was friends with Peter Straub, who, in fact, he was a kind of mentor to me. And Peter Straub and Stephen King.
Oh, frozen again.
We'll come back. We'll get him back.
I'm just going to keep freezing because that's what StreamYard does. But I'll do a thoughtful pause whenever that happens. Okay. I can hear you when you're talking, even if I'm frozen. Anyways, I emailed Peter. I said, no pressure, but can you thank King for me? He did. King emailed me back within 5 minutes, and we just, started a bit of a correspondence from there. He has generously blurbed several of my books. I interviewed him on stage at a literary festival, and I hesitated. I won't say we're buddies, but we are friendly. And I hesitated to ask him because 5,000 people are bugging Stephen King every day. But in the end, I figured the worst he can say is no. And I pitched it to him with valid reasons, because this basically takes place in the world of The Stand. Because it's a serialized story that has some equivalency to The Green Mile. I read The Green Mile in installments when I was a kid. That came out, every few weeks in a Dickensian way. And Carrie is essentially an epistolary novel. Some people now might remember that if they're more overly familiar with the film now. And he's taken some big experimental swings with Riding the Bullet and The Plant. They pushed back against traditional publishing norms and forms and the way he released them on e-platforms early on. So for all those reasons, he seemed like a great person to bring on board. And he said, yeah, because Stephen King is the nicest dude in the world, despite the evil on the page. He really is a very sweet guy, and very kind to emerging writers and younger writers. And he, his role is like, my name isn't on the paper for the sake of verisimilitude. It looks like a paper, right? And in the same way, there's no Stephen King on the paper. So when I asked him, like, what's your byline going to be? He suggested Bachman. Now, you all know, if you're a constant reader, that Richard Bachman, is his pseudonym, responsible for The Long Walk and The Running Man, among others. But every one of those Richard Bachman novels is dedicated to Claudia. And Claudia Bachman appears in the Dark Tower series. So he suggested the name of Claudia Bachman, Claudia Inez Bachman. Nice. And so now I have nudged up against the Kingverse as a result of this.
Nice.
So Claudia,
I'm excited for you. I mean, I think the concept is fantastic. I think that the form is innovative and old and new. And I also think that, like, this is great. I'm so glad you're on here. I'm so glad we're talking about it. I'm so glad we're giving you this opportunity. How has the process been for you?
Fun in that, I'm drawing from comics. Comics have taught me so much about serialized storytelling, and blending that with the world of prose. So one way that's really fun is the manner in which this is coming out, right? I think that the book publishing industry is a little backwards in that a novel comes out as a hardback and it costs $37 or $40, right? That's very exclusionary. Not many people want to drop $40 on something.
They don't know if it's any good.
You don't know if it's any good, right? I think the comics industry is much smarter about this, and that they put out a digital copy, or they put out a physical floppy for a relatively cheap price. I know some people would beef with me on that, but $3.99. That's less than a coffee at Starbucks. And through that, you build cheap, wide word of mouth. People get excited, they get hyped. And then the paperback trade comes out, and then a year or 2 or 3 later, right, a hardback comes out with like some exclusive material, and then maybe one day the omnibus, right? And there's a ladder, and that ladder is also, bears some resemblance to what happens with the movies. You go to the $5 Tuesdays at your local cinema
Sure.
and check out a movie, right? Later on, you buy that DVD, deluxe, extended cut, director's cut, whatever, and spend $30 on it. So, anyways, here's this opportunity for people to get on board with a story that comes every month, and it feels a little fresh and innovative, and it's not as expensive as buying a novel. And yeah, I feel like more books should be doing I'm not saying doing this, but doing something like that, like put out a paperback before you put out a hardback.
So there are some people who are doing this, very few to the best of my knowledge. There was a Felix Leiter novel serialized. I think it was Richard Benson who wrote it. Sort of chapter by chapter, every chapter every month, and I don't know if they're done with it yet or not. But when it's done, they're going to come out with the book, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if that's the right audience. I don't know that it isn't. But we started today's SquadCast with my brief ode to the roots of comics fandom. I should point out that back in those early Roots days, there was this comic book writer editor named Marvin Wolfman who was doing fanzines. And one of the fanzines he was doing in those days, or several of them, incorporated the services of people like Gene Simmons of Kiss fame, under his real name, and Stephen King. So if you look through piles and piles of old fanzines and you're a Stephen King fan, you might be in for a surprise.
That's interesting. I was thinking about our good friend Marvin recently. I'll get into that another time. We're gonna come back to the end times. I want to come back to it again, but let's take a little tour. You've spent the last decade or so, writing comics and novels. Just do you ever not write? I mean, like, it's got to be.
I am no fun on vacation.
That's one of my questions.
I'm a compulsive. It's a compulsion. Like I can't not work. So even if we're on vacation, I have to work in the morning, and then I'll go do stuff in the afternoon because I have too much to get out of my system. I got to lance the boil and let the poisons out.
So that's one of my things I had set up here. I want to, like, what is your setup like? How do you go? Did you have like a writer's nook, or do you just write anywhere and everywhere?
I think that having ordinary habits helps you be more productive, and so I keep a very regular schedule when I can, unless I'm traveling.
Okay.
I get up and I get the kid off to school. I say kid because the other kid is now in college. How did that happen? So I get my daughter off to school and then walk the dog, and then I go downstairs with my coffee and I start to hammer. And I go from roughly 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock to roughly 4:35. And, I take some breaks for coffee and lunch and walk the dog again. But yeah, I'm locked in. So it's just like just like a job. Clock in, clock out.
Well, I mean, I've heard that King has a very regular schedule like that as well. Like, he does a similar thing where he writes, takes break, then writes some more, and then that's it. Like, just every day, like that type of thing. I think I heard George R.R. Martin talk about it and bemoan his constant ability to produce.
Well, it hasn't always been the case that I've had a schedule like this.
Sure.
I was a visiting professor at Marquette University with an infant in a super tiny apartment, and the radiators didn't work, and I was writing with the fingerless gloves and a snow cap and a rocking chair with a keyboard balanced on my lap, and making coffee at 11 p.m. and falling asleep at 3 a.m. and waking up at 9 a.m. to go prep
Sure.
and teach the day. And I wrote whenever I could, and gradually carved out, because I was moving to another job, and then I moved to another job and moved to another job. And probably the best job I ever had for time was Iowa State University when I was tenured there. I had a lower course load because I was expected to produce what they call research, which when you're a writer is, it sounds a little silly to say. Yes, my research is writing a werewolf novel, but you're putting out books, publish or perish, they say. So there's a lot of time and support in addition to me teaching graduate courses and such. But then, I was able to go full time at the keyboard about 13 years ago.
So what excites you about comic books? You come from a world of what people would say would be higher literature. I don't know. I don't know that I would use that word, but people would say that. And you are a prolific, excellent, acclaimed comic book writer. What excites you about comics?
I grew up on comics. Comics were a constant in my life. I moved around a lot as a kid. I was in 8 different schools, and that wasn't easy. But comics were kind of like, and novels too, were just a constant companion and escape hatch for me. I don't have any understanding of comics continuity because, I'd be buying comics at a mercantile. I'd be buying comics at a grocery store, at a convenience store, at a flea market, at a garage sale. I'd be reading. I realized later, I bought this thing from a mercantile. I thought I bought it at the time it came out, but it was actually dated years before. Meaning it had just been collecting dust in this mercantile, waiting for me.
Right. Waiting for you, of course.
And so, anyways, antique shops, wherever I could find comics, I would read them. But it would be 2 issues, and I don't know what came before. I never figured out what happened afterwards. It would be 1 issue, it would be 3 issues. It would be just. It didn't matter to me. I was following the characters, and the continuity was irrelevant. But I became sort of siloed in my interests. I loved Conan. I loved Warlord. I loved Wolverine and the X-Men. I loved the Punisher. I loved Man-Thing, Swamp Thing. I was very into certain characters. So, I love Spider-Man, right? But I actually haven't read that many Spider-Man comics.
Sure.
I've read probably more than your standard citizen. But Kraven's Last Hunt, that's my favorite Spider-Man story. And otherwise, the films have really informed my understanding of that character. So in other words, I have big blind spots here and there when it comes to character.
It's interesting because we have these conversations.
To contribute now to the mythology.
We have these conversations. Go ahead, Mike. You got
it. That's what makes you a fanatic, and I don't mean that necessarily in the sense of a fan, because we think of fans as organized fandom that may or may not be applicable here. But you're falling across that one book that will make everything else make sense. That's an achievement, particularly when you're a kid and you go to one of those stores that has a bunch of old back issues and stuff, and you give them a couple of bucks and you walk away with a stack of comics that you never read before. And it's an exciting experience. You feel like you've found something. When I was a kid, I was a huge Adam Strange fan. Still am. I missed 1 issue of Mystery in Space, at least 1 issue as a kid. There weren't comic book stores back then. There were barely trees. And my dentist was across the street from an antique dealer that had the comic book that I wanted in the window for years and was never open. I'd go to the dentist, I'd have some work done, I'd come back in a couple of weeks. a couple months later, I'd have another appointment, whatever. For years, place was never open. Always wanted that book. I never got it there, but I did get it at one of the early conventions I went to.
It is interesting. It's an interesting concept because you bring up a point, Ben, where there's so many of our friends, your friends, who are in this industry who have a similar experience, where they love comics. This is the thing that they're connected to in so many ways, but they didn't. They and you said a similar thing where you kind of say, well, I didn't have that continuity experience. I don't think people of our generation, none of us do. I think it's a level below that people are like, oh, well, I have to do it in this order, and I have to be, tied to this, especially even younger generations. They're like, well, where's the lore start and how do I go? Where's step one? But we all we're at the mercy of the mercantile or the convenience store or the 7-Eleven and whatever was in that spinner rack. I mean, there's until you find a comic shop that you can go get a pull list, like a box. Like I wasn't until I was 19 that I did that, but that didn't mean I wasn't reading all the comics I could get up until that point, and I think that we all have that kind of experience, which is interesting because even today I'll get, I have piles of read piles all around. And I'm like, well, where do I want to get to this story. And then sometimes I'll be just like, I'm just going to start here. And you just go and you just like, I'm going to get this here. I don't need to know what happened before. Or sometimes you'll be like, oh, I want to read this event. And then you realize it's all about Doug Ramsey being an asshole, and maybe you don't want to read that. But no shame, no hate. But but
yeah,
so
to this day, I'm not that concerned with continuity either. Like I always wanted to write my own evergreen version of the characters, which I, fell into a lucky experience with the Predator books because in writing Predator versus Wolverine, Black Panther, Spider-Man, Predator kills the Marvel Universe, I was able to create my own continuity, so I could just do like whatever evergreen version of the character I wanted.
Mm-hmm. You've also, a lot of times you've taken characters and kind of spun them. I'm going to tell you something about your writing that this is since the last time I saw you. So like, I've always hated Akihiro. I have never ever gotten any sort of liking from him. People are like, oh, I like him and this and that, and then Steve kind of made me like him, and then you killed him very brutally.
It happens.
It's comic.
It is comics. It is comics. I love it.
I killed him.
You kill somebody, they get better.
Well, listen, it's an interesting plan. Let's talk about that for half a second here. That is a character that has kind of banged around, really started to become something of a regular in the Marvel Universe in the Dark Avengers time, right? And then kind of banged around and as I said, didn't really find a lot of attachment. And you got a plan for him. Where did that idea come from to turn?
Well, I love Wolverine. I love the Wolverine family, but I can see that Akihiro was, I won't say, that he was floundering, but he was always on the bench. Like,
sure.
He'd get a moment in the spotlight, then be back on the bench.
Sure.
And I think it was because the same sort of emotional territory was being tread on over and over and over again. And he needed a glow up, I guess you could say. What's the best way to create a glow up? You light somebody on fire.
Send him to hell.
The Hellverine. He now has a new interesting power set that sort of distinguishes him from Wolverine. And the whole idea of that miniseries and that ongoing series that I wrote, he was able to process his trauma and sort of, overcome some of the scars that were debilitating him and find meaning in pain and experience a kind of literalization of the demons on his back through this experience of merging with a demonic parasite
Okay.
and finding a way to do good with bad.
I love it. I mean, I do. I
It seems
do.
very timely right now.
Yeah, it's fun to write. And then my goal was to get him to that new place and hope that other people, picked up the flaming baton from there. And thankfully he started to show up in other series. And yeah, hopefully Helverine will keep blazing for some time now. But I feel like, did my job.
That's
There
good.
you go.
That's awesome. How does that work for you? You've been working for Marvel for quite some time now, and how does the process for you work in terms of what you write or how you approach either an assignment, or do you seek out things within the universe that you want to attack or have a story for? How's that process for you work with the editorial there?
Well, early on, and this is when I was at DC, it was more a matter of like, you guys are offering me something, I will do everything I can to get that series. Because it was never like, here you go. It was instead, what do you think? You're competing in this in a bake-off with 5 other writers. Put together a 30-page pitch. Prove you're the best person for the job. So it's just like scramble to get, the gig. And that's how I got Green Arrow. That's how I got Teen Titans. But, once you become sort of more established, the work starts to come to you. And
can I ask you a question? I'm sorry. Did you do that also with Nightwing?
Nightwing was more, I did put together a pitch for it. I don't think it was a bake-off situation, but okay. DC at the time was heavily micromanaged.
Yes.
And so
listen, we all know that you're
different times now.
I understand
management, right? But
I just would have. I hoped you didn't spend a whole lot of effort putting together this massive idea for Nightwing, only for it to get ripped out from under you the way it did.
No, that's exactly what happened.
I understand.
Whatever, water under the bridge. But yeah, right in the middle of my greenlit storyline that was supposed to last for 3 years. But Nightwing got shot in the head and became Rick Grayson. But
he didn't have to be. That wasn't.
But anyways, it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me because I jumped over to Marvel and it's been, I got to write my favorite character in comics, Wolverine. So anyways, at Marvel, it's much more now like an editor approaches me and they're like, hey, absolutely loved what you did with Wolverine, Deadpool. What about a Deadpool solo series? And, you go back and forth a little bit and you punch up like a small document and you're good to go. I mean, the approval process never ends. Like I always write up like a description of, every issue before I actually script it and blah, 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 blah. And I'm constantly on the phone and responding to emails with editors. So it's just like an ongoing conversation, but I don't have to write these giant Bibles anymore to get a job, because I'm a Marvel exclusive. So it's like, hey, you want to do Ghost Rider? Hey, you want to do Punisher? Let's rock and roll. Let's crack our knuckles. Let's figure this out. Let's move forward.
Well, so what do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, so I love the character.
So you're gonna. So
this is
February. Is that right? Is that right? February. Wade Wilson.
February, yeah.
Is this a ongoing per se?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm paired up with Jeff Shaw,
Fantastic.
who is a brilliant artist, and we've teamed up on Weapons of Vengeance, that Ghost Rider Wolverine crossover, and we've teamed up on Red Hulk, and he's one of the Stormbreakers right now at Marvel. Great dude, and he brings this, grittiness, this heaviness to everything he does. But it's been fun to see him flex different muscles with Deadpool. So one of the things that distinguishes this run I mean, you see right there at the top, Wade Wilson, Deadpool.
Yeah.
The human side of the character is at the fore of the series. And it's not that it's not funny, but I'm treating it like this. The rest of the world is dead serious. Deadpool is funny, but everybody else just thinks he's insane, right?
Sure.
And annoying. Like the rest of the world is not silly at all. So there's no like ridiculous.
Nobody
things
else is in on his jokes.
Very grounded. And Deadpool is going through a time of extreme pain. And you'll understand that better when the series kicks off. But he is, using his facade of humor to mask what's going on inside of him, the rot inside of him.
It's very interesting.
It's an amazing character. And so many good writers have lived up to its potential and has contributed to its potential. It's not a character that you could pitch to a publisher and the publisher will go, "Oh, that's the coolest new idea I've ever heard in my entire life." No, it's a crazy guy who's really good at killing people and growing his arms back. I mean, that's what he does. Yet so many miles have been put on this guy. Interesting character, and quite frankly, the reason why the Wolverine thing works, the Deadpool Wolverine thing works, is because they are such opposite characters in execution, but not in purpose.
Yeah, they got a Kirk Spock, Sonny and Cher thing going.
Yeah,
that's
Riggs Murtaugh.
That's
Lethal Weapon reference.
I understand. I'm good with it.
I'm sure some people don't understand that one.
Listen, we were talking about All-Star Comics #3 before you got here, so
they keep on.
Mike was bemoaning Mike was bemoaning the unfair shaft that Johnny Thunder has gotten for the past 80 years. So you mentioned that Wolverine is your favorite character, and you've gotten to write, I think, more Wolverine than any other character up to this point. I did a little looking, and I think you got 50 issues of Wolverine plus all the extras, right? So
plus all the extras plus X-Force is arguably
plus so
and then
is there
it keeps going. I mean, I got more Wolverine stuff coming out. There's Wolverine Deadpool. There's Wolverine versus Predator. Like, there's the Wolverine podcast.
Yeah, so let's talk. That's where I wanted to hit that a little bit. So you wrote a podcast. How is that as a writer, professional writer? What tools and skills or muscles do you have to flex there that you may not in other forms? Like, what was that like when you write something that's a scripted podcast, and or even how does that differ from screenwriting, because you've done that as well?
That was my first opportunity to write Wolverine.
And really? So that was it, right?
Yeah, that was in the middle of writing Nightwing. This opportunity popped up. I was all over it. And that was what allowed that gateway from DC to Marvel.
Sure.
Is that I was writing the podcast. I wasn't writing comics for Marvel. I wrote the podcast first. And I didn't know anything about writing podcasts, audio dramas. But when, I was going to get this job. So I listened to everything I could and took a bunch of notes and found that some of the most popular podcasts at that time, like Homecoming, like S-Town, they were told in an interrogative mode, meaning there was a Q&A element to it. Like in Homecoming, it's a therapist talking to a patient. What that did was it created the opportunity to deliver exposition in a way that wasn't clumsy. Clumsy exposition comes when somebody's like, here I am walking down the street on this fine October day. There's not a cloud in the sky, and up ahead is an old house with cobwebs in the window where some say 20 years ago to this exact date, old man Withers hacked up his family with an axe, and lo, does thou hear a sound behind that door now? The sharpening of a blade.
Keep going, please.
Anyways, if you open up a comic book, if you start a movie, you are immediately fed information, right? Oh, it's sunny out. Oh, it's snowing out. It's raining out. It's New England. It's the South. It's the Southwest. Right? You have all of this stuff that just clicks in a half second. You don't even have to think about it. But in radio, it's not there. So you have to deliver it in another way. So here I am studying these podcasts, this interrogative mode. I came up with the idea that I would make my main characters federal agents investigating a serial killer in a small town in Alaska. And Wolverine was going to be one of the main suspects. And so what this allowed me to do, because I started to run into all this panic of like, I'm taking a visual medium, comics, and I'm transporting it into audio. How do you write a fight scene in audio? Right? And not completely confuse everybody. How do you do this? How do you do that? And not completely confuse everybody. This interrogative mode really helped, because here you have an agent sitting down with somebody and be like, where were you last Saturday night at 3 a.m.? And then a guy, he's a crab boat fisherman. He's like, well, I headed down to the docks, and a fog bank had come rolling in, and, I got onto the boat and headed out into the water. And this is when, like, the soundscape of that moment starts to come in. So you hear the shushing of the waves, you hear the creaking of the rigging, you hear the squeak of rubber boots on a wet.
You went really well, and you hung up now. But
yeah, really,
it was going so well.
You
can probably hear it.
So you hear the soundscape.
Yeah.
Alongside the narration, the scene sort of seeps into the present, and that's how my whole podcast series worked. It was like this series of interrogations with different people in this community and their stories, every one of which contained a secret or a contradiction. And so it was this mystery that unfolded over 10 episodes, and it was a big hit. It was one of the best things I've ever written, I think.
You think so?
And I really do think so. I say this because I didn't know if I'd ever be able to write Wolverine again. So I put everything I had into it.
Oh, yeah, right. Sure. Audio drama, and I'm a huge fan. I have a broadcasting background, but I'm a huge fan of audio drama. One of the really cool things over the last 30 years, ever since Big Finish got the rights to do all that Doctor Who stuff, of which they do like several hours every month with the original cast members, is that it's a great forum for heroic fantasy. Because if you're good and you're thoughtful at writing and you know a little bit about audio production, your listener is the artist. And you can paint whatever picture you want as a writer. You can develop whatever you want in the character. But the listener is going to see it in his or her own way. And that's a wonderful opportunity, because they can't get it wrong. It's the way they see it. And you're allowed luxury as a writer that way,
Yeah. If you're watching a movie, if you're watching a TV show, that's a lean back medium, right? You're fed information, you're passive.
Right.
Mm-hmm. If you're listening to an audio drama, you're leaning forward.
Absolutely.
And you're a co-author in a way of the narrative.
Yeah, I love it.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you did that. So when you did the long night comic, how was that? An easy transition to, or what? How did you approach it?
So I had to take 10 episodes and turn it into 5 issues. So the plot was truncated. I had to figure out what to cut, characters to cut, plot, side plots to cut. And again, that wasn't my first opportunity to write Wolverine, but it was my first opportunity to write Wolverine on the page.
Sure.
And so I took it very seriously and was super excited about it. And from there, the door opened to write X-Force. And then after writing X-Force for some time as part of the Dawn X, then I got the mainline Wolverine series, dream come true.
Awesome.
Right.
So now you're going to be writing Deadpool. You're going to be writing. You've already started writing Punisher, and the new Punisher series is coming out as well. You're going to be doing that. My understanding is that there's a lot more planned. A lot more things are coming. Are you excited about where you are right now on the comic side of things?
Yeah, I'm having a blast. I have a few Star Wars things coming out that I'm a giant Star Wars nerd, and so it's super exciting to be chatting with Lucasfilm and building up stories that are part of that mythology. And I'm also, some things I absolutely cannot talk about because I've actually been NDA'd on it. But let's just say there's more Marvel horror that I'm talking to folks about, and I also have some creator-owned books coming out with Mad Cave.
Well,
So
I'm all for that. I'm all for that. It's funny because you obviously know you have a stunning persona. You are this big lumberjack guy with this deep voice, but you are, for people who don't know, a huge nerd. In so many ways, and you've captured the story. And it's one of the things I love about you. Let's talk a little bit about how you approached something like Devil's Highway, which I'm a huge fan of Devil's Highway, which is a creator-owned book. So you're in this medium where you came in to it pretty much. Your first stuff was a translation of your short stories to comics, but then pretty much you did licensed stuff for a long time before you went back to doing creator-owned stuff with AWA. So what was that like to be able to do your own stories in comics that way?
It was a lot of fun being able to collaborate with my buddy Brent Schoonover, who's here in Minnesota.
Which we love, Brent.
Little hoot, and he was the perfect artist for that story. He brought a lot of grit to it, and he brought a lot of Midwest personality. There's a coastal prejudice that you see in a lot of storytelling, and so we wanted to set something in the North, and make the geography and the culture, the vernacular,
temperature,
the myths of the place part of the narrative fabric. And so it's about the underworld of trucking. And
it's terrifying.
They let us go hard with it. We treat it like a David Fincher project.
That's fair. 100%. You did it.
It's nice too being able to, when you do creator owned, when you're at Marvel or when you're at DC, there are certain imperatives, and one of them is they want content rich material. So it's hard to sometimes let the art speak for itself because they want to put some more dialogue in there, put some more narrative captions in there. And when you're doing a creator own book like this, I could really just step back and take a more minimalist approach. And my main character, there wasn't any narration, and our main character was not very chatty.
Nope.
And so, Brent could carry us with this sequential storytelling.
I don't think he gets enough.
I really love that change of pace.
Comics, as we all know, is an artist's medium. It is a visual form of communication that lays a burden on the writer to let the artist interpret, let the artist do the artist's job. Problem is, too many writers become editors. And I'm being kind of hypocritical when I say this, but you think like a writer, and you're going to think, well, we need more words, we need more dialogue, we need more clever shit to hit you over the head with. Yes, we do. Look at Jack Kirby sometime, and get hit on the head a few times and walk away from the typewriter. It's a visual medium, folks. And writers who respect and understand that excel at it.
It was a lot of fun to do that with Brent and being able to just You tell the story for 3 pages. We're not going to have a word besides a sound effect here and there. And I think
Yeah.
it really contributed to the sense of eeriness as well in horror, in that
Oh,
you're more
you know,
swept away in the story, and there's not an intrusive authorial intrusion on it.
that's the book you read like on a cold winter
You
night.
completely establish
Make sure you
your
got some
ambience.
light around. So it was interesting as I was looking through, preparing your opening video. I was thinking about your creator-owned stuff and how great it is, and how I hope there would be more of it. So, is there anything you can talk about? Any?
The announcements haven't officially come, but I'll speak about them vaguely.
That's fair.
And one of them is a horror title,
Mhm.
and it's a horror story I've had in my head for a long time.
Okay.
And, and also,
Are these things that are close enough that you have, you've gotten pages, you're already in
art is
production?
underway. Art is underway in both, yeah. But I still don't think because of the way Mad Cave rolls things out. Mad Cave is very smart in that they don't like to release books until they're done.
Well, they are very smart about that, and I do like we are fans of theirs, and they're friends of the show, and we
So it
talk
might
to
not
them.
be till fall of 2026 or winter spring of 2027.
That's fine. I
These
I
come out.
like that. I like to know that it's tough, and I hope that I think my only concern with that as a fan and a fan of and a friend of comic book creators is you know is the economics of it, like that you guys are getting taken care of and not hanging out in the wind until it hits the press, right? Like that's my biggest concern. As long as they're doing that, I think it's smart for them economically and reputationally to have everything in hand before they start, saying, "Hey, it's going to be here," and then it's not.
Well, and so much of the big 2 comics, which I'm in the mix of constantly, is like sprint.
Let's tell everybody about it. Let's tell everybody now. Hurry up and do it. Hurry up and do it.
Just like 50 emails, 100 emails, 200 emails a day of, we need this 5 minutes ago. So it's nice to work at a different pace.
So Mad Cave is you've spoiled that, just in case you didn't know. But so Mad Cave is going to be is at least one of them. Are they both in Mad Cave?
Both, yeah.
Nice. Glad to hear.
And the other one I can say again vaguely is a sci-fi thriller. So I've got a horror title and a sci-fi story. It's I guess I should say it's like Spielbergian sci-fi with a touch of horror to it.
Yeah, the problem with the big 2 is that they can't afford to put everything in the drawer until it's done. Now, I'm not defending that because both companies have been known to sort of retroactively schedule projects. By retroactively, I mean, oh, this is good, let's do it tomorrow. No, we actually have to write it and draw it and do all that stuff. No. Get it out tomorrow. And even though they're owned by Warner Brothers, whoever owns Warner Brothers this week, and Disney, they don't have the deep pockets. Comics are expensive to produce. They're very expensive to produce. And if you're producing 40 or 50 of them a month, like the big 2 do, you can't vault that money.
Yeah. Well, because I am a psychopath and have to, get all these stories out of my system.
Sure.
On a daily, weekly, monthly basis. My brain is suited to like the machine gun element of Marvel or DC, where it's just like, a constant assault on the page and your inbox, and you're reviewing letters over here, and you're checking out costume designs over there, and you're writing a summary, and you're doing this press interview, and like it kind of suits me too.
Well, that's good. I mean, like I said, I'm glad you're in this industry. I'm glad you're doing the things you're doing. I think you make it better by you being there, and I appreciate that.
Fun.
Well, you're doing stuff that you enjoy, working on a lot of characters that you always wanted to work with.
Yeah, none of this feels like work. It all feels like fun.
That's right, and you can see that on the page. Now, you're not alone in that. A lot of folks get into comics, and the lucky ones are privileged enough to be able to do some of that. And that's great because that's where we get our best work. Enthusiasm is what drives storytelling. You got to want to get the story that's in your brain into that guy's brain, and it doesn't matter who that guy is.
Yeah. Well, I could introduce you to some very bitter comics people too, but there's a lot of happiness and joy for sure. And you know who's maybe the cheeriest person in comics? The person who loves it more than anything in the world? Dan Slott. That guy fucking loves comic books.
That's true.
Down to the marrow.
There are more than a few folks who have that type of enthusiasm, and I admire their ability to hold on to that. You know, that's really wonderful. That level of comics enthusiasm. That's wonderful.
We talked about, Wolverine being your favorite character. Is there a character you haven't had a chance to write that you hope to someday?
Conan.
Really?
Yeah. I read my way through all those Conan novels. Savage Sword of Conan growing up. I'm still reading Conan. I love what Zeb's doing with it. But Jim Zeb's doing with it, and I would also love another shot at Batman. I mean, I can't say I haven't written Batman. My debut,
right?
Which
Sure.
Is very auspicious, I know, but there's a lot of rejection that came before that. My debut in comics was with Detective Comics, that 2-shot. That was the fall of 2014
with John Paul Leon too. By the way, what a debut!
R.I.P. What a huge loss that is.
But hey, that's a great way to start writing comics.
Yeah, I mean, he was so generous. Right above me here is a 2-page spread that he drew for that issue that he gifted to me. And he coached me along. I was like, JP, this is my first comic book. I don't want it to be my last. Help me be a good writer for you and for other artists. And so he gave me some killer advice. And he, helped kick open the door, because it was because of that issue and all the eyes on it that I got Green Arrow. But I would love to come back to Batman. I would love to, do a Batman graphic novel or do a Batman ongoing.
That's awesome. That's cool. So we've talked about, and we're going to get back to, if you haven't paid attention, in the comments and the show notes, there's a link to where you can go to Bad Hand Books and pre-order or order the End Times, which is the epistolary monthly newspaper shaped novel that's coming out from Ben Percy along with Stephen King. Do that. You have also you have 2 ongoings at Marvel right now, plus I'm sure tons of other stuff that's happening. You got also the follow-up to the Doom book.
Dungeons of Doom is coming out in January, and that's like a
two issue thing, right?
Tales from the Crypt style anthology that I'm doing with Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Yep.
I
talked to Philip earlier this month. We're
the 2 psychos at Marvel.
Yes.
We get all the horror books too.
And then there's some other stuff that's coming out. So maybe we might have to come back and we can talk about some of that stuff when that happens.
Yeah, there should be a Star Wars announcement in the next week or 2.
That's good. That's excellent. Are you're done with shows for the year, right? Do you have stuff set up?
Yeah,
early?
and I'm not going to be going to many shows over the next year and a half, because my daughter is a junior in high school. And so I want to just spend as much time with her before she heads off to college. So
good.
You're not going to be seeing me at cons, really. Maybe 1 or 2.
Awesome. Well, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Well, you're always welcome here.
You got a great reason and a once in a lifetime opportunity. Take it. Yeah. You bet.
Ben, I can't tell you how excited I am about the stuff you're doing. I thank you so much for everything you've done. And I look forward to seeing more.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on and helping get the word out on the End Times. And great to bullshit with you both.
Thanks,
Oh,
man.
great time. Thanks, Ben. Nice talking with you.
Nice
Have,
talking to
have
you.
a happy holidays.
Yeah, you too. Oh.
All right. That was super fun.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
he's a really great dude. I was happy that he came on. It's one of the things, that as I plan our shows, I have like this list of people that we need to get on and that we want to, and it's always like, oh yeah, I'd love to do your show. We always get that response, and then it's a matter of coming down and finding the time and remembering to circle back to that person. And I was happy we were able to do that with him, especially because part of it, a lot of it had to do with the end times, because I saw this thing coming out and I wanted to know what that was about, and I figured it'd be great to have him on to talk about it. I think it's a brilliant idea.
I love the fact that Ben is it has been so involved in serial writing.
Yeah,
because I think that's you can't separate that from comics now, because the major form for everybody is, you kind of do like a 5, maybe 6 issue story and you put it out in a trade paperback. So you have this serialized thing. Well, that's Ben used the Dickensian term earlier.
yes, I thought about that as well.
And the big difference, of course, is that comic book people who serialize their stories aren't being paid by the word.
Well, there's that. There is that.
Better than Dickens. You're not. You're going to be paid the same no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. You can let the art speak for itself in the comics.
That's right, and that's the point.
I will say if anybody who's watching, and for you as well, if you haven't read Devil's Highway, go give it a shot.
Right.
It's an AWA book. It was one of my favorite things. Also, Year Zero that he did was fantastic. Thanks everybody for watching, for listening, for being here every week. We will be here again next week. Next week, our guest is going to be Frank Barbieri. And we've been talking, I have been talking about Author Immortal for like months now. And he is the writer of it. And so we will talk about that. We'll talk about a bunch of other stuff that he's doing and that he's done, because he was in comics, then didn't write a bunch of comics. He did some other things. So I want to talk about that. And then now it's back doing comic stuff, which I like. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be at GalaxyCon Columbus this weekend, manning the Hero Initiative booth. If you have a moment, in the comments, there is a link to Hero Initiative, donate to Hero Initiative link. If you have anything you can do, it's there for people who need help. So, Mike, what do you got?
I got nothing. I'm not even going to leave the house until next year, I think.
That sounds fair. Well, like I said, we got 2 more shows here. We'll end up the year. We'll finish up the year. We will have done over 50 episodes this year.
Wow.
We had a couple of two a week ones.
Right.
And we didn't have very many weeks off. So yeah, we will have done 50
Well,
episodes.
I've had more weeks off than you, and I appreciate
we're together in this endeavor. So there've been over 50. This is episode 121 of the Pop Culture Squadcast Live. That's a lot. That's pretty amazing. I figured it's like a full working week worth of time that we've been on the air on the internet this year.
Right. So if you're ridiculously bored and you really, really miss us, we're always up there on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, you just grab the podcast on YouTube. There's
we can annoy you at any time of day or night.
It's like 3 days straight for this year.
We can drive you crazy. Thanks, folks, for being out there. I feel like we're supposed to go into a year-end thing now, but
no, we got more time. We got more time. Next week's going to be a great week.
Holidays or anything. Just digest your turkey and get on with it.
All right, everybody, stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you We will see you next Tuesday at this time. Remember, read more comics. They're good for you.
All right.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?